Hey everybody, welcome again to Challenge Athletes Live. My name is Bob Babbitt from the Challenge Athletes Foundation. I'm jazzed to get to chat with Marcus Chischilly, who is one of our Operation Rebound athletes. Marcus, how you doing?
Good, good. It's good to be here.
You prefer Marcus or Chili?
Chili's perfect. So I think the only time I use my first name is if I'm in trouble. So
You're not in trouble. Hey, so when you grew up on the reservation, right?
yeah,
Was that in Arizona?
yes, correct. Down in Winter Rock, Arizona, is where the Naval reservation is, where typically the extension of the rest of my family is from. Up to about age 8 is when we moved off the reservation and back into the city, Phoenix, and then that's kind of where I finished growing up before I joined the Marine Corps.
And what led you to join the Marine Corps? I know that the Navajo Nation has a history in terms of the code breakers going back to World War II.
Definitely, yeah. There's a long lineage of great historical Native American people serving in the armed forces. Being Navajo Native American definitely was one of the priorities of just wanting to be a Marine in general. I've had a lot of family members, uncles who've served in the Korean War and Vietnam as well, who are Marines, and there's just something about the presence of the way that the family, treated them. The aspect of like they'll walk into a room and everybody doesn't necessarily get quiet, but they just have this revered respect for what they do. And I wanted to be a part of that. And so I got that opportunity just immediately after high school. So,
Yeah, you were 18, 2005, and you did 3 deployments, 2006, 7, and 8. And then October 9th, 2010. That was obviously an important day in your life. Take me through what happened.
October 10th, 2000 and October 9th, 2010. I was serving with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. We had deployed to an area known as Kajaki Dam in Helmand Province. And up until that point, it had been really the northern most point of where Marines were stationed. We were with, I believe it was 312 India Batteries, an artillery unit that was stationed up there, just basically holding down the forwardmost front of our operations that were going on primarily in Sangin Valley, with where the main forces of where 3-5 was located. So on the morning, like we normally do, it's a patrol out to basically interdict enemy activity and get a hold of more intelligence on how we can better be more effective against the Taliban forces there. And so during a small firefight that we had, I stepped on an IED, and that ultimately got me, sent back home and on this long road of recovery. And it's an interesting thing because up until that point, we have seen, or I personally saw, our units lose guys and have guys come home, and you never really understand the aspect of that journey and what they go through, and the mentality and the emotional aspect of it, and what recovery kind of really looks like, and then how adaptive sports really fits into that. So it's an interesting perspective to go through it, but I've never really gave it that much thought. Knowing the fact that we've had some close brothers, come home that were injured in previous conflicts, such as the Iraq War, and then losing, a good majority of our guys, some really good men who had served on that deployment with 3-5 as well.
So you lost your left leg above the knee and had other shrapnel injuries. Talk a little bit about how, like you said, you were part of a family basically when you're over there.
Right.
Now you're home, which is great to be home, but you also are not part of that family. How hard was that adjustment, besides the fact that you're dealing with the fact that you lost your leg?
The adjustment piece was, it's not that it wasn't challenging. It was kind of like we took things sort of like as they came. I remember getting phone calls in the hospital from my guys who were still in Afghanistan. Some were, apologetic for not volunteering to take the same patrol that I did. Some others were worried that their team leader was essentially not going to be there for the duration of the deployment, where a lot of these guys, they were seeing combat for the first time. So it was an interesting thing to go through, and I had every trust and confidence in the guys that were there with me the day that I got injured. I had every trust and confidence in the guys that I had to essentially leave back in combat, and worry that one of them might be in the same position that I was, or worse, that they might not have made it home. So unfortunately, we got a lot of good guys back, but that family really got extended after we came home, after we got, linked up with organizations like Challenge Athletes Foundation, and worked with all these different veteran organizations and people in the staff in the hospital. It kind of really broadens the scope of, who takes care of who. And up until that point, I had really only known and understood that, Marines take care of Marines. And then you go back home on this completely different journey of recovery, and you understand that, it's that the military veteran community really takes care of its own. So, I mean, I've had help from guys who've served in the Army. I've had instruction and mentorship from guys who've served as Navy SEALs. And so it just, that sort of aspect of brotherhood and the camaraderie that exists between all the military branches, it all kind of comes together. And so that's a really cool thing to see. Challenge Athletes Foundation out there, they got all these different organizations. Nico Malarco is also a Marine, so that kind of helps get the guys from the Marine Corps a part of the organization. But I think the important piece is to know that, there's family everywhere when you sort of partake in this recovery journey from being combat wounded.
So how did you get connected? Was it through Nico Marcolongo and connected to the surf clinic and your first your first relationship with CAF?
Yeah, and that's exactly how it happened. Working with Betty out of the surf clinic out of the Naval Medical Center in San Diego was my first kind of like introduction into sports. I didn't know how to surf, didn't know how to really be in the ocean, but they do it in steps and stages and stuff like that. And Nico came out. That was the first time that we had linked up with him. And ever since then, we've had a really close relationship with, what the Challenge Athletes Foundation really is, and how do they improve that, and what areas, do they need to continue to strive on to help with our warrior capacity when it comes to dealing with the patients, and sort of getting them to be really more familiar with the sort of new abilities of their recovery. So, doing stuff like wheelchair basketball, participating in marathons, doing, Paralympic type sports. Nico was always there to be like, hey, I got this sporting event. I got, wheelchair basketball expo. I got the surfing event. We want to try to get you guys out as much as possible to, just stay athletic for one, but also to try to take your mind off of the aspect that, we went through combat. We went through some hardships, and to really try to focus on, this whole inner self thing. And I think that's really what sports does, is it really helps develop you personally, mentally and physically. But, to be around other guys who have served in the military, who are also on that same journey, is what's really cool about it.
So you're doing some work at the zoo, correct? San Diego Zoo,
Yeah.
when the world gets back to normal again?
Right. Yeah. No, we definitely been there for a couple of weeks now. We had a soft open, I believe, June 20th. So we've, it's been a really good journey, but even that job has a direct link right back to where I had recovery, which was at the Naval Medical Center, San Diego. The rec therapy, the recreational therapist, her name was Marla. She'd always take us over to the zoo. We got really familiar with being a part of that program, which is now called the Wild Heroes program. And it's sort of like changed hands over the couple of years, but I help run that program now there. And what we do is we provide internships to transitioning veterans, both up at the Safari Park and the San Diego Zoo, to see if they're interested in a job that has to do with, zoology and the care taking of animals.
So wheelchair basketball, is that something that's still a big thing in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I at this point in time, I haven't played in about 2 years. And that was just because I became a father. I have 4 beautiful children. I have 1 more on the way in August. So the aspect of being on all the time for practices and games definitely, was taken over with this needing aspect to be home and to be a good father and to provide for my family. So later on, I definitely, me and my wife talk about it all the time of picking wheelchair basketball back up. The Wolfpack wheelchair basketball team in San Diego is still much very alive and going out and definitely dominating tournaments. So we follow their pages and all the athletes that are part of the team. So yeah, it's probably not ever gonna leave, my body ever. Once you learn it, you fiend for it. Wheelchair basketball is one of those weird, I think it's just it's a good sport. It's a weird feeling to have that you miss something that you were never really good at. I was never good at basketball. I didn't play sports in high school at all. So to learn a sport as an adaptive athlete, and also to learn a sport in general, such as basketball, was a unique challenge. But it's always something that I look forward to getting back to.
What I love is how things come full circle. Didn't you bring wheelchair basketball into a camp out at the Navajo reservation?
Absolutely, yeah. Rehoboth, New Mexico, which is right outside of Gallup, New Mexico, had an adaptive sports program, but didn't really have I would say the resources or the know-how to actually put a camp on for adaptive athletes in general, and to always be inspired, even by yourself, by Nico Malargo, by everybody else, even by Laura, to want to go back and continue to pay forward and give back. We saw an opportunity to provide a wheelchair basketball camp for athletes who might not even have the aspiration to perform wheelchair basketball. We gave them a chance to come out. They signed up. They had no idea what they were doing, and we taught them the sport. We taught them the game, and now we see these athletes out doing hand cycle marathoning. They'll go out and play wheelchair basketball. Occasionally, I'll get asked to come out and participate in one of their sporting events, or at least to come out and give a talk about my experience as an adaptive athlete. And it's kind of like my hat goes off to them, because a lot of these guys, these younger generation athletes, were either born with some type of disability that got them, into adaptive sports as a whole. Whereas, I was technically, I like to say, I was born with just, sort of normal. I was born with the aspect of every other person that is. So when I went through recovery, is a humbling experience, knowing the fact that there's a younger generation out there that's all they know. And it was something that I had to learn myself. And so, you go through that whole pity party of like, what's going to happen to me, and am I ever going to be good enough, to looking at a younger generation, and they're thriving every single day. There's not a doubt in their mind. There's no feeling sorry for themselves. They go out every single day and they try to perform as much as they can, as normal and as possible as they can. And you can see the light and happiness that they have. So it's sort of a win-win when we talk about that closure of the full circle. We see younger generation kids who have nothing to do with the military, teaching guys who have gone through hell and high water, just some simple basics of humanity and learning how to push forward.
I love it. So, Chili, we're going to move into rapid fire, some quickie questions and answers. Best CAF memory.
Best CAF memory is being on the beach, catching waves for the very first time, and meeting all the other adaptive athletes.
Very cool. Chili, what is it about you that internal something inside of you that's made you successful and able to overcome everything that's been in your way?
I think it's always been, am I able to do this? Is always the first question. Can I accomplish this goal? And then it's just knowing that I want it. I was never really raised to have this aspect of, work really hard for something that you want. I was raised to sort of be conformed to, take care of my family. And when you kind of step outside of that branch of just, what's normal for you based off of your upbringing, or my upbringing, I should say, I've learned that there's no limitation, whatsoever. If there's something that I want to achieve, it's there for my taking. It doesn't matter, what challenges are in the way. Overcoming and seeing my body doing, amazing things when it comes to the healing process, really helps me align with the fact that, everything else is going to take care of itself. 80% of success is literally just showing up.
So, Marcus, we have obviously through this pandemic, it's been tough times for a lot of our challenge athletes who might be wheelchair basketball players, haven't been able to get together with their friends, or they're quad rugby players, haven't been able to, that social part of it, but also just feeling good about yourself by being with other people. What's your message for people who might be struggling right now?
The biggest thing is maintaining the mental capacity, picking up a good book about, what it is to strengthen your mental state, strengthen, the small things that you do every single day that are now a really big aspect of your life. The simplicity of, just waking up every day and having to rush out the door to get to, to practice. I would say the biggest thing is to, really focus on that self-development. This is a time where you're going to be spending a lot of time by yourself, that you don't get the encouragement from others, There isn't the coach in the same room, you know, telling you the next thing that you have to do to help challenge and push yourself. But as athletes, you definitely learn that. And at some point, you're going to have enough knowledge and enough experience to give that to somebody else. So, you know, at some point, you know, you always ask yourself, if I had to teach this same strategy of mental strength, of mental toughness, and this perseverance and this feeling to want to adapt and overcome, you know, what else do I need to do to continue to develop that professionally? And then at one point, you know, how do I deliver that to somebody else and become someone who's influential?
Marcus, thanks so much for taking so much time. Such a pleasure to get to meet you. And thank you for everything you do for Challenge Athletes Foundation.
Yeah, no, thank you guys in return, and it's my pleasure.
This has been Challenge Athletes Live. My name is Bob Babbitt. That is Chili. Chili, you are the best. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it, guys.